Characteristics of classical music. Classical music is called that because, well, it's classic. Often considered as one of the best times of music, the influences of this period can still be found in the modern era. But despite how iconic it is, not many people are fully familiar with the true characteristics of classical music. What was it truly like during this time? How did certain things come into being? What inspired the greats of this time? If you're keen on the classical era of music, your mind is surely filled with questions like these. So, let's explore what the answers are by going through the most important characteristics of classical music that you should know about. The classical era arose from a reaction against many of the established musical norms, and composers worked on developing a very different sound. Classical music, like classical architecture, built its structures on symmetry and apparent simplicity. Composers began to abandon the complex polyphony of the Baroque in support of more homophonic forms. The ornate melodies frequently found in Baroque music gave way to measured, regularly phased tunes. It is in the classical period that the idea of the equal temperament scale finally becomes accepted, and tonality, as we recognize it even today, becomes permanently established. Mozart and Haydn, two of the most notable and respected composers who ever lived, were the pillars of the classical movement. It was also these astonishing composers who in many ways shaped the way classical music grew and laid the cornerstones for future styles of music. Exploring the many musical forms of this era's composers. From the Baroque suite comes the sonata and sonata form. Chamber music becomes ever more in favor, with both Mozart and Haydn champions of the string quartet and string quintet. The concerto remains a popular musical form during the classical period, as well as the sacred musical forms of the Mass and the oratorio. Opera begins a whole new journey as a vehicle for rich musical expression, both as comic and serious opera. What are the characteristics of the music of the classical period? A dominant feature of the classical period of music is heard in the construction of the melody. Regular or periodic phrasing is common in the music of many classical composers. What this means is that the melody is frequently composed to be in even, regular bar lengths. The additional reason this phrasing appeals is the harmony that underpins the melody. In the classical period is the height of the tonal system, with a clear polarity of tonic and dominant harmony. The power of the tonal system and the pull of the tonic-dominant relationship gave structure to larger forms than just composition of melody during the classical period. It allowed composers to develop a hugely innovative musical form called sonata form. The principle of the form is simple. In its purest form, there are three sections that make up the entire form. These are the exposition, the development, and the recapitulation. Each plays an important role in making every piece of music work. Discussing different instruments in classical music. As instruments began to develop in the classical period, we find that the orchestra also begins to take on a new sound. The introduction of the clarinet into the woodwind section made a significant difference to the timbre of the classical orchestra. Strings. The string section of the orchestra had grown in size to include distinct sections: first and second violin, viola, cello, and double basses. This drastically altered the possibilities for different composers to explore new sound combinations within their compositions. The piano. The piano began to occupy a central place in the lineup of available instruments for the classical composers to explore. Piano sonatas and concertos make up a large portion of the classical repertoire. The piano sonata, designed for more intimate settings and often composed to specific commission from a noble patron. A typical classical feature in much piano music of the time is the Alberti Bass. The accompanying figure, that is the Alberti Bass, consists of a chord broken up into quavers, quarter notes, or semiquavers, eighth notes, with the root note of the chord sounding first. This accompanying line would be played by the left hand of the pianist, whilst the right hand played the melody above. The idea was extensively employed by Haydn and Mozart, with Beethoven adopting it later in many of his piano works too. It would be a mistake to not mention an important musical form called Rondo before we wrap things up. This widespread musical form derived from the ritornello, Little return, popular in the Baroque. It was also a form that Mozart loved as it gave him almost endless musical possibilities. There's simply so much to talk about when it comes to the classical era that we could go on and on forever about this amazing period of music. But, we've managed to stick to the most important details and hope that you had a lot of fun learning about them.